My entitled younger sister left her 3 kids behind, and I stepped in to raise them. Years later, when they offered me money as a heartfelt thank you, she suddenly demanded it for herself. Hello, I'm 48F and my sister, Diana, is 46F. We never really got along growing up. She was always arrogant and rude toward me. So we went our separate ways right after high school. I chose to pursue higher education, while she moved in with her boyfriend. Fortunately for her, he came from money, because our parents couldn't have supported her living independently. She made it very clear to them that she didn't care about their opinions and would live life on her own terms. So they never tried to interfere and simply let her go. Diana had twin daughters at 20 and a son at 21 while living with her partner. Our parents were happy for her but worried, since she now had major responsibilities and no job. She relied entirely on his income to maintain her lifestyle. She never married him, which I think was a poor decision because she would have had legal rights to spousal support if they broke up. They eventually split after she learned he was unfaithful. Thankfully, he paid the child support he owed, but he wanted nothing to do with fatherhood and surrendered his parental rights. The girls were 3 at the time and my nephew was just 2. After that, Diana was completely on her own and needed every bit of help she could find to stay afloat. Despite our strained relationship, I decided to offer support, mostly because our parents urged me to. I earned a decent salary back then, but it wasn't enough to cover all 4 of them. Still, my parents and I contributed small amounts each month, and together we helped them scrape by. The first few months were especially tough for her since she had no degree or work history. She had to start at entry-level jobs and climb quickly, which meant long hours. But that was complicated by the fact that she had 3 young children and couldn't just leave them alone. Full-time childcare was far too expensive, so she had to depend on me or a few friends. Our parents were still working and already helping financially, so they couldn't watch the kids full-time. I was in a similar position. None of her friends were willing or able to take on regular childcare because they had their own jobs and lives. As a result, she was stuck with low-paying, flexible-hour jobs that let her get home quickly. This kept childcare costs down since she didn't need someone for long stretches. The situation dragged on like this for years, and I believe Diana began to resent her own children, viewing them as obstacles to her progress. She once said they were the only thing holding her back. I would drop by occasionally. Not for her, but for the kids, to check that they were okay. Our relationship was rocky, but I wasn't heartless enough to let innocent children suffer because of their mother's choices. So my parents and I visited regularly to monitor the situation. The children constantly complained about how Diana treated them. She would scold them harshly over tiny things and lash out simply because they were being normal, playful kids. It was a miserable environment for everyone, and I wished I could remove them and bring them to live with me, but I had no legal grounds. She was still their legal parent, and I had no authority. Plus, she was receiving child support from her ex and managing to provide basics. I felt sorry for her situation, but far more for the kids. Things grew worse when Diana started dating again. Whenever a relationship ended, she blamed the children. She believed men left once they learned she had 3 kids. I think part of the problem was that she hid the fact she was a mother in the early stages of dating, only revealing it after a month or 2, which felt deceptive. I tried to point this out several times, but she insisted she was rejected solely because she had children. She would taunt the kids about it, reminding them how their father had left her and threatening to abandon them too if they misbehaved. The children lived in fear of her, and their childhood was overshadowed by her self-centered behavior. This went on for years. I often thought about taking the kids and leaving, but it wasn't possible. Her actions, while harmful, didn't rise to the level of abuse or neglect that would allow me to seek custody or report her, so the arrangement continued. And the kids were simply grateful to have me in their lives. Our parents were too old to be their close confidants, but I was always available when they needed someone. They could never open up to their mother, but they could always come to me, and they did. Whenever they struggled with schoolwork, friends, or issues with Diana, they turned to me, and I valued that trust deeply. It's no surprise that when they each turned 18, they chose to leave their mother's home and move in with me. As adults, they could decide where to live, and they picked me. Diana was furious and had plenty to say. She claimed she had wasted 18 years raising them, only for them to desert her. She was extremely bitter, telling me that if I wanted to raise her children so badly, I should have done it from the beginning instead of stepping in after the hard part was over. I wanted to reply that she hadn't truly raised them. They had largely raised themselves while she was either working or out with men who eventually left once they discovered she had 3 kids. She never understood her priorities, and it was obvious why things ended this way. The kids chose the person who had actually been there for them over the one who constantly criticized and punished them because she was unhappy in her own life. It seemed she had no awareness of the damage she caused because she was hurting herself. But I didn't want to make her feel worse, knowing how painful it must have been for her, so I stayed silent. After that, contact between us essentially stopped. Her children chose to live with me, and Diana decided to cut off everyone, including our parents. It was strange because they had done nothing wrong. I think she was upset that they hadn't taken her side against me when the kids moved in with me. So she severed ties with them. 2.7 years have passed, and the kids are thriving. I don't know much about Diana's life, but her children are doing wonderfully. My nephew went to medical school and is now a pediatrician. One niece earned a literature degree and teaches, while her twin sister owns a successful hair salon. I helped each of them secure business loans and provided whatever financial support I could. I'm incredibly proud of how far they've come from their difficult early years. They now live independently. They only stayed with me for about 4 years, and even then, it wasn't full-time because they were mostly away at college, returning only during breaks. I think they simply didn't want to risk returning to Diana's house, where they never felt truly wanted. It's been 2 years since they all moved out, and I'm so happy for them. I never expected anything in return for my help because I genuinely believed it was the right thing to do. They were innocent kids, and no matter how strained things were between me and my sister, I could never turn my back on them. I've always had a special place in my heart for them, especially since I never married or had children of my own. It wasn't something I wanted for myself, but for them, I was happy to be the stable parental figure their father wasn't. And, well, we all know how Diana was. They needed someone reliable, and our parents were too elderly for that role, so I filled it. That's all I did. I never anticipated repayment, but I'm touched that they are the kind of people who feel I deserve a gesture of gratitude. Even though I don't think it was necessary, I truly appreciate their thoughtfulness. About a week ago, I turned 48 and celebrated with friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. It was a wonderful evening, and my nephew kindly organized everything. Though I offered to cover the costs, he insisted on paying because he's now earning well and wanted to do something meaningful for me to show his thanks. After the party, the 3 of them sat me down for a serious conversation. They explained that now that they were all financially stable, they wanted to express their deep gratitude by giving me a joint monetary gift. I protested, saying it wasn't needed. I'm still working and comfortable, but they were adamant. They said it wasn't about settling a debt. They could never fully repay me for the emotional support and belief I gave them. This was simply their small way of showing appreciation. I was profoundly touched by their sincerity and wanted to share the moment online. I just wanted to publicly thank them for their kindness. Since Diana and I hadn't spoken in years and I was blocked on all her accounts, I assumed she wouldn't see it. She had never once reached out to ask about her children's lives after they left home. True, they had cut contact first by moving in with me, but that was a consequence of her behavior. The least she could have done was show some interest and attempt to rebuild bridges to make amends. But honestly, she seemed indifferent to the loss of contact, so I figured she had moved on. A few days after my post, however, she suddenly messaged me. I wasn't expecting it. We hadn't spoken in 6 years, but I should have seen it coming. The moment she realized her children were financially successful, she appeared, eager to find out what she could gain. In her message, she said she'd seen my post and wanted to discuss her children. She admitted she'd made mistakes and hadn't been a good mother, but now wanted another chance. She claimed she'd missed them terribly over the past 6 years. I'm skeptical because if that were true, she could have contacted me at least once. She asked me to speak to them and help mend the relationship since they listened to me. The timing felt suspicious, so I ignored her. When I didn't reply, she called that evening, and I lost my temper. She kept pressing me to help her reconnect, but I refused. I knew she was only interested in their money, not their well-being. If she genuinely regretted her actions, she would have reached out to them directly instead of going through me. She still couldn't set aside her pride even for a moment. She expected them to come to her, despite being the one who needed to apologize. Her sense of entitlement was astonishing. She argued, insisting she wasn't after money and that it was insulting to suggest otherwise. I told her I wasn't implying anything. It was obvious. I felt disgusted by her motives. Then she accused me of taking everything from her, saying I'd already stolen her children and was now stealing her money. I told her I didn't need the money and had initially hesitated to accept it, But now I would take every penny because she didn't deserve any part of it. Now she's posting tearful messages online, sharing what I said and trying to paint me as the villain. Some relatives say I went too far, that I'm greedy, and that I should apologize, which is ridiculous. That's why I'm asking. Am I wrong for telling my sister she doesn't deserve the money her children chose to give me? Update. Following advice from others, I spoke to my nieces and nephew about the situation. They said they'd already heard bits from relatives and planned to talk to me but hadn't found the right moment. After I invited them over and explained everything, they assured me I'd done the right thing, and my nephew was especially vocal, saying he never viewed Diana as a real mother. He always saw me as the parental figure because she was never there for him. My nieces agreed, though they were too emotional to say much. He was clearly the angriest. He pointed out that Diana only contacted me because she'd never done the bare minimum for them. Despite receiving child support from their father, she still made them feel guilty for existing, which was never their fault. They all believe I handled it correctly and said they have no intention of reconnecting with her, no matter what. They also encouraged me to share my side publicly now that she's spreading negativity about me online. They feel that's the best way to set the record straight, so that's what I plan to do. I'm relieved they're firmly on my side. Our parents are staying neutral, saying they don't want to get involved. It's odd because Diana cut them off too after the kids left, and they haven't spoken in 6 years. Their hands-off approach disappoints me a little, but at least my nieces and nephew support me fully. Many people have asked why I never sought custody or reported Diana if I knew she was a poor parent and mistreating them. I explained in my original post that while her behavior was harmful, it didn't meet the legal threshold for abuse, severe neglect, or torture. She was consistently harsh and emotionally unavailable. While I could have tried for custody, it was highly unlikely I would have succeeded. Courts generally favor keeping families intact, and these children had already lost their father. With only their mother as a biological parent remaining, the system would prioritize preserving that bond. I knew that if I pursued legal action, Diana would retaliate by cutting me off completely and possibly moving far away. Winning full custody was already a long shot, so pushing it could have left the kids in an even worse position. That's why I chose the safer route. Staying involved and always being available, that I'm not sure if it was the absolute best long-term choice, but at the time it felt like the only viable option. Maybe there were better paths, but it's what I believed was right. It weighed heavily on me for years, whether to fight for custody or risk everything, but I decided it was better for the kids to stay with their mother while maintaining contact with me and our parents than to gamble and potentially lose access entirely. I hope this clarifies things for those wondering. Some may see me as the bad guy, but I don't mind. I know the kids are happy and successful now, and I did everything possible to keep them safe and supported. I was always there for them, so I have no regrets. Update 2. It's been a week since Diana's initial message, and today I received numerous calls from family members and others who had spoken to her. They were lecturing me about my mistakes and criticizing my actions. It became exhausting, especially since I've been busy with work, which is why I hadn't posted sooner. But today I reached my limit. After a quick discussion with my nephew and nieces, I decided it was time to share my full perspective. And in some ways, there's online. I don't think most relatives truly understood what those children endured growing up. How they faced daily taunts simply because Diana chose to have kids young and then blamed everyone else for her decisions. She tried to portray herself as a devoted mother doing her best, but in reality she was rarely present. Since she was telling people I stole her children and was now taking money that should be hers now that they're successful, I felt the truth needed to come out. Not just her distorted version where she's the victim instead of the one who caused pain to everyone around her. Many had already judged me based only on her narrative and felt sorry for her. But I deserved to tell my side, and so did her children. So a few hours ago I wrote everything out and posted it. So far, Diana hasn't responded directly to me, and the only messages I've received are from relatives who criticized me earlier. They've suddenly changed their stance and are now apologizing for judging too quickly. Honestly, their apologies don't mean much to me. I just wanted the truth known. I don't care about their opinions. But it was important to reveal how Diana treated her children, which explains why they no longer have contact with her. Anyway, now that this is out there, I'm ready to move on. I was perfectly content for the past 6 years without any contact from her. I believe the same is true for her children. I don't understand why she stirred up all this unnecessary drama. If she wanted financial help, she could have been honest instead of pretending she suddenly wanted to be a mother again. Update 3. It's been a day since I made that post. Diana must have seen it this morning and decided to retaliate. Rather than message me privately, she went straight to the comments, trying to claim I was making things up. But it didn't work. As soon as she started replying, her own children jumped in, responding directly and reminding her of specific incidents from their childhood where she had been cruel. It went on for about an hour, and none of us felt bad about it. In fact, my nephew, nieces, and I were all quietly enjoying watching it unfold. They completely dismantled her arguments, and she had no defense because every falsehood she posted to discredit me was immediately called out. I'm glad it happened over the weekend. Otherwise, we might not have been able to reply so quickly. After about an hour, she began deleting her comments to hide the evidence of her contradictions. But it was too late. Many people had already seen the exchange, and others started calling her out as well. She kept erasing comments, backpedaling, and eventually blocked me. She also blocked her children. I suppose that was her version of giving up, and I'm glad because she would have lost badly if it continued. We clearly held the stronger position, morally and factually. I thought deleting everything might finally end things, but she still sent me one private message saying she hoped I was satisfied now that I'd portrayed her as a monster and everyone hated her. It was incredibly ironic coming from her, since that's exactly what she tried to do to me first. She started the public attack, and now that I responded in kind, she can't handle the consequences. I don't understand why people start conflicts they aren't prepared to face. Just avoid creating drama if you aren't ready to be held accountable. Anyway, I ignored that message, and that's what we'll all continue to do forever. She's no longer worth our time or energy. She's proven it herself. Thank you for reading, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications for more real-life stories like this.